I think, fake it till you make it is a fantastic place to start, and it's essential, really. But there's really three things you have to do when you do that too. You've got to think like that person, you have to feel like that person, and you've got to do like that person. You mentioned those things. What happens is the fake it till you make it. We have to see that person. Who is that person? Whether it's a different version of yourself, or what we do in coaching too is modeling. We find someone that has the thing that we want, and we model what they've done. Hey Dex, how you doing?
Good, man. How are you, Shane?
Good. I was contemplating the idea of identity the other day. And so I thought today might be a good idea to kind of throw a few ideas around about identity. And I guess the reason for that, when I think about identity, it's kind of like the basis of everything that we do. We've got beliefs and rules that we abide by and everything like that. But I feel that identity is kind of like the thing that pushes forward everything, even though we don't kind of maybe consciously know it. It might be back in the mind and all of that sort of thing. So, do you remember, you may have seen this maybe on Facebook or some post sometimes, where a picture might come up and, it's got a picture of a cat in front of a mirror, and it's looking at maybe a lion or something like that.
Oh,
you ever seen that?
Yeah, I have.
There might be similar ones like that, where obviously the idea behind that is, what do you see in the mirror? When you see yourself, like in the morning we go to brush our teeth or do our hair. I don't have that problem. but when we look in the mirror, what do we see? Do we just see what's on the surface, or do we kind of look a little bit deeper, and is there more to it? I remember a time when I was young where I used to be quite bullied and teased. If you don't know, I'm from Sri Lanka, and around the time of the 80s, there was this Sri Lankan show on TV called Elephant Boy, and
I'm not laughing about it. I've never heard of that before.
No, you haven't heard it? Okay.
No.
I don't know if you can find it now, but it's called Elephant Boy. And so a lot of the kids used to watch this show, and there was a little kid on there, and his elephant was called Kala. And I had quite big ears, still have quite big ears, and so I used to get teased quite a lot for my big ears, and they'd call me Kala all the time. And so I used to get pretty annoyed about that, and so I decided I was going to grow my hair, and just to cover up my ears, right? So by the time I got to kind of adolescence, I had pretty long hair, and I started getting into music and kind of heavy metal music. And I thought, oh, this is a good idea. I can grow my hair even longer. So I kept growing my hair and my hair got to the point where it was down to my waist. Well, actually, it was down to my bum. But anyway, I grew my long hair, and it kind of fitted with the kind of identity I saw myself as, kind of this rock kind of dude, because I was learning music, I was playing guitar, and I was into heavy metal, and I thought, oh, all of that fits. It's great. So that worked for me up until the time I was kind of married and having children. I was still playing in bands and things like that. And I remember this weird time, and I was walking down this street, the main road, and there was a truck going by, and it was doing the honk honk, and I thought, who's that for? And the guy realised I wasn't a female when he went past, so I thought, this isn't good, But that was a funny moment. But
you sure it wasn't because of the hot pants you were wearing at the time?
It was because of the hot pants. That was the problem. But But no, where this became a problem though was when I was working. I still had the long hair, and I moved from an environment where I was working in the warehouse into sales. And when I was in sales, it was okay because it wasn't face to face; it was on the phone, and I could probably have tattoos, I could have a bone through my nose if I wanted to, and so my boss was okay with it. But the problem was I wanted to get out on the road and get a sales rep position, and so the only way I could make that happen, he said, was if I cut my hair. And I thought, well, that's not going to happen. And so this went on for a while. It was a joke at the start. And then later on, he said, look, if you kind of get serious about this position going out on the road, then I'll seriously give you a go. It means cutting your hair. So I did it.
Wow. Okay.
I cut my hair. I didn't fully cut it short like it is now, but I cut it kind of to my shoulder length. And but I can remember at the time when I cut it, it was like, oh my God, what have I done? It was like I completely lost this identity that I'd been carrying around for like maybe about 15, 20 years. And so it was a dramatic change when that happened. And it reminded me, as soon as that happened, you ever heard of the story of Samson and Delilah?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the biblical story, right?
The strength.
So,
yeah.
Yes. So people that don't know, Samson had these superhuman powers that was given to him by God, and Delilah, his girlfriend, was trying to find out where his source of strength came from. And she had an incentive to do that. She was given apparently 1,100 bits of silver or something like that to do this. Yeah, Bitcoin. Well, that'd be worth it.
Yeah.
But so that was her task, right? To find out where his strength came from. And she asked him, and he gave her an answer, but it was a lie. And she found out it was a lie the first time he told her, and then she asked him again, and he gave her another lie. And she tested it out, and sure enough, it didn't prove to be true. He did this 3 times until finally she said, I'm your girlfriend, trust me, that type of thing. So he trusted her and said, the source of my power is my hair, and after she arranged to get his hair cut while he was asleep, they were able to, his enemies were able to overpower him and kill him, basically. And so he was betrayed by the person he loved for money, right? I guess that might be the moral of the story. And but I remember when that happened, it was like, oh my God, I've lost all my power. Not the same way. It wasn't superhuman strength, but it was kind of like that same weird feeling. Oh my God, who am I? And so I had to kind of rethink, who am I going to be now? I don't look like the dude that I thought I was 5 seconds ago, with the long hair. You don't fit that mold anymore. And I was moving more into this identity of the dad, the one that goes out to work and does this stuff. And I started to not take my music as serious anymore. Even though I enjoyed it, I noticed that it wasn't the first priority anymore, like it was, And but it was a real epiphany moment where I went, oh my God, just by doing that shapes your identity. And it wasn't something I had thought about, but it kind of forced me into understanding that, the way we see ourselves really projects our outcomes, the way we act, how we think about ourselves, all of that. And I guess that kind of helped me go into a deeper kind of state of wondering how all this happens. Why do we do what we do, and why do we do things that we don't want to do as well? and I thought it was a really interesting moment in my life, But have you had any kind of situation, something like that at all?
I've had something similar, and only just very recently. The thought of identity for me is still fairly new. Growing up, similar to you, almost identically to you. There was a TV show called Perfect Match.
Oh yeah,
Do you remember that?
I do.
And it was a dating show, and the compatibility of any two people getting together was judged by a robot, and that robot's name was Dexter.
Dexter.
so I used to cop it. Plus, I'm Asian as well, Filipino Asian, and so I'd be called Dexter the robot.
Yeah.
That didn't cause me to grow long hair or anything like that, but I do understand what you were going through in terms of some of the comments. I don't think it affected me too much. I don't know, that primary school, high school thing is a bit hazy to me, but I never really assumed an identity, so to speak. I had different interests growing up, and if that could be seen as an identity, then sure. But I never saw myself as like a car guy, or a guy that liked hip hop, or a guy that played baseball. It was just kind of part of me being me, and so to have that as like my one true identity, it was difficult for me to say, yep, that's who I am, because I was just part of so many different identities, so to speak.
Yeah.
Now, the only thing that really had changed when I talk about this being quite recent was the video that I recorded, which I showed you. It was my coming out video.
Yeah.
And for those of you listening, no, I'm not coming out in that way, but I am coming out in a particular kind of way. So for the past 25, how old am I? Yeah, about 25 plus years, I've been in IT for the most part. And if I could have any kind of identity, or if you could put an identity on me for the past 20, 25 years, then it's being an IT guy. And that's what a lot of people knew me as. And therefore, that's kind of like the identity that I had assumed. And I now want to become a coach to complement some of the skills that I have, and I want to go down that path. And so the video was about me coming out as a coach from being an IT guy. So same kind of thing. People think it's clickbait. I don't care. I got lots of clicks. I thought it was fun. So it did give me a little bit more to think of with regards to identity and how you see yourself in the mirror. The picture that you describe about a cat looking in front of the mirror and seeing a lion. I've always had something similar to that, but it was different each time, if you know what I mean. I was talking about baseball and rap music and cars and all of that sort of stuff, and so when I would look into the mirror, it could be something. It could be something different each time. It could be, hey, here's me playing professional baseball, or here's me, drifting a car around, or here's me, singing on stage, or something along those lines. They weren't so much as an identity as such, but more so something that I thought was kind of cool, and maybe I could want to go down, but not really. Yeah. But realistically, the one identity that seems to have stuck for the longest time is that being of an IT guy. Even though I am a brother, I am a son, I'm a dad, I'm all of those different things.
Yeah.
I never saw them as an identity, really. For me, even now that I think about it, and as I hear myself talk, an identity for me is usually what people ask you what you do. Hi, nice to meet you. Hey, I'm Dexter. Oh, what do you do? Oh, I'm in IT. That's kind of the identity. Not many people say I'm a dad, or I'm a brother. It's usually based on occupation for the time. And for me, because I've been working for myself for so long, I don't have like a personal life and a work life per se. because I think they're the same thing for me. I love doing what I do, and from what I've seen from the coaching side of things, I'm going to love coaching as well. So when the new identity comes as me being a coach, also, it's not going to feel as like a work thing for me because I'm going to enjoy doing it so much. So even though I have done a ton of personal development, self-development, and all that sort of stuff, the identity thing for me is I haven't gone that deep into it. I think at the same time as well as now, me personally, I don't like to kind of put myself in a box, so to speak. I think everybody, not everybody, I know I do, and I know other people do as well. I tend to think that people like to think that they're a little unique in certain circumstances. Like there's a little quirk about them that makes them different from other people. Like, sure, you've got people that are so-called NPCs and they just want to, blend in with society. But I think deep down inside, people like to have something that's a bit different to them, that makes them different from the other person. And so the word identity for me is almost like, okay, so you're an IT guy, which means that I can stereotype you, which means that, sure, some of them are going to be right. Like I'm Asian, like a lot of IT guys are Asian. But then but I'm beyond that. I'm more than an IT guy. And I think personally, that's probably where the identity part for me hasn't stuck as, say, some other people that say, yep, look, I'm definitely this, or I'm definitely that. And, whatever the stereotype is fits me to a T. And so there's probably some pushback there initially, I think, on my behalf, where it's like, no, you can't put me in that box, because I'm part of it, but I'm so much more than that. But I do enjoy the study of it. I do enjoy how some of them can be quite scarily accurate in terms of, if your identity is this, then therefore you exhibit these sorts of traits and these sorts of thoughts. And for some people, I'm like, wow, that's spot on. It's quite scary to see that.
Yeah.
So from an identity point of view, saying that I'm an IT guy and also a coach, I'm actually quite happy with. But, with an asterisk, saying that I'm so much more than that, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everyone's got a depth to them, definitely. And I think, in our own way, we all believe and know there's always a quirk to us, and we are a little bit different from everyone else. Like, I look at people in my family and we all grew up under the same roof, and we're all just a little bit different, even though we've been brought up with the same kind of beliefs and everything. I am definitely the black sheep of the family when I look at, things that I've done and they've done, and they probably think exactly the same as well. They probably think they're the odd one out. And but I think this thing with identity, it starts from this thing of like you said, a lot of people do say, it's probably like the label of a job or something like that. But even the thing of I am a whatever, fill in the blank. That's when we kind of describe who we are, right? If that's something that isn't kind of fixed, if you like, if it's not something that, let me give an example. There was someone that I knew that was, the gentleman was maybe about 60 or 70 years old at the time, and he had been brought up in a very religious family. And he said, there was a statement, I was born as a whatever the religion was, and I will die as a whatever the religion was, and that, and regardless of whatever beliefs exist out there, they're all wrong and I'm right, that kind of thing. And so his identity was very, very much fixed, to what his upbringing was and what their beliefs were, and he would not consider anything else. And my only thing would be for that was, what if he woke up one day and he didn't know who he was or what his religion was? And would he adopt this because all of a sudden he thought, yes, this is the truth? Or, was it something that he had been told or brought up in? If he was in a different family, would he feel completely different? Say, this is a different religion. I was born this way. That's going to be my truth till the day that I die, And I think the more flexible we can be, I know it's a label of identity, but the more we kind of aren't fixed with particular ideas, like you mentioned, I'm an IT guy. I've often said I'm a car guy. I've said that for decades, and I still love cars, but I'm not so much of a car guy like I used to be. I was like a die-hard cars, 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 music, music, music. That's it, That's all that kind of exists, and so I think, you can be all those things. Like you said, you wear all these different hats. You take one off, put another one on during a particular period. But it doesn't mean it's a fixed thing. It's like you said, it's all of those things. It's not I'm just this, I'm just that. That's it, Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Speaking of hats,
Yeah.
allow me to put my coaching hat on first. Like, there you go. Yeah. No, look funny.
Excellent.
No, when you were just talking, you made me think of something as it relates to coaching, where we do some future thought, and if the future thought is something that you're wanting to achieve and you've not achieved yet, assuming an identity that you want to assume then helps you go back and figure out what you actually need to do in order to assume that identity.
Yeah.
So, sure, I want to become a coach, and in the future I will be a coach. So if I assume that identity now, what are the actions that I need to do in order to become that coach? If I want to be an engineer, great. What are the steps that I need to do? So identity doesn't necessarily have to be a past or a present thing. I think from a coaching aspect, serves as a very solid fundamentals to gain a future identity, because people will have an idea of what they want to become. Coach, engineer, it could be a nurse, it could be anything. But if that's the identity that they want to assume, then they know roughly what needs to be done. Do I have to go to university? Do I need to get my grades up? Do I need to study? Do I need to do this? And do I need to do that? And from a coaching point of view, that would definitely help. And that gives a person direction. It gives them an idea of what to pursue and the decisions that they need to make around certain points in their life, that they go, okay, so I've now finished year 12. I've got enough marks. What school am I going to go to that's going to provide me with the best education in order to be an engineer, a nurse, a lawyer, a doctor, or whatever it is? So, even though when we sort of opened up, I said that an identity for me is only quite recent. It is, because I've not been open to that kind of thought before, really, until I had the chance to change it. Because similar to you, I was a car guy. I still am a car guy. And again, like you, I'm still into cars, but not as much as I was before. The IT identity has been with me throughout, but that's because that's how I make money. That's how I pay bills. That's how I can afford to do things other than IT when the money's right. But now thinking about it, had I been a little bit more open to the idea of either assuming an identity or imagining an identity when I was a bit younger, I probably would have had a little bit more guidance in terms of what it is that I wanted to do. Because one of my daughters is in that position now, very close to finishing school, and she doesn't have an idea as to what identity she would want to assume. And she might not for many months to many years. And even still, once she does and works towards it, eventually achieves it, then it might change. In fact, it most likely will change, and I think that's the cool thing about it, is that at least for me, from what I can see of what an identity would be kind of cool for, it's kind of like a little bit of a roadmap to get you to that goal. Now, you're not going to be the same coach as everyone else. You're not going to be the same lawyer as everyone else. But if you roughly know how to get there in terms of the steps to take, then you can be the coach that you want to be. You can be the lawyer that you want to be. You can be the doctor that you want to be. But it just means that it gives a little bit more direction. Whereas for me, the identity it wasn't thrust upon, but it was where I landed. I didn't, now that I think about it again, I started off in marketing, and I then took an IT course to become an IT guy. And there's probably the transition there, but even still, I didn't go down the mental gymnastics of wanting to be an IT guy. I was, that sort of vernacular when I was sort of young growing up. It wasn't a thing. It wasn't a term. It probably was, but it wasn't something that I was familiar with at the time. It was just like, oh, I love marketing, but you know what? I love IT because it makes more money, so I'll just do that instead.
Yeah,
without really thinking of what are the bigger ramifications, which is fine. We all kind of grow up differently, but now being a little bit more aware of like what an identity is and could be and could lead to, it then serves as a good map for me to then go, okay, so I want to be a coach, and there are some really cool coaches, and this is what they've done to achieve their success. I can copy that. I can get to that point where I'm now ready to kind of do my own thing and be the coach that I want to be. So once it's all said and done and I am a coach, then that will be my new identity. Maybe, it's, even still, it's the course that I'm doing, they actually say that you don't actually say that you're a coach. You say that you help people in a particular kind of way, which I understand as well. Because I think even certain identities, I mentioned it before, you kind of box yourself in.
Yeah.
If you say, I'm a coach, okay, well, what sort of coach are you? Okay, well, I'm a life coach, I'm a results coach, I'm a mindset coach. And even saying that still boxes you in, know, because like I could be a business coach if I wanted to, because I've got some skills in that. So, the topic of identity itself, at least for me, is probably more fitting as a guidance tool to achieve a particular objective as part of that identity.
Yeah. I think the thing with identity, it creates two things. One, how do people relate to you? Who do they think you are? When you haven't met someone before, what do you do? That sort of thing. So they form a picture in their mind of, oh, that's what you do, and it does put you in a box. And that's why sometimes, like what you said, say the word coach itself, it took me a long time to kind of go, no, that's not really what I do, but it is. Some of it is what I do, and it's kind of like coach, mentor, guidance, a whole lot of things. But so I think, for other people to kind of get a picture of who you are, what you do, that sort of thing, in not such a broad term, you don't want to give them a full, here's my resume. You
can if you want.
That's it. Here's my website, go and have a look. But the thing is also, identity kind of gives you somewhere to go, like you also mentioned. It can become a goal-oriented kind of focus. But when we were younger, like you also mentioned, identity wasn't a thing. People don't talk about these things, probably even not so much these days. Maybe in our circles they do, because this is something that we kind of have to help people with, even though they may not recognize it as identity or whatever. But when I was younger, all it was what job you're going to do? Okay, tell me which one's going to pay the most and which ones do I like. That's all, but doing those particular jobs, you start to become a particular identity without knowing it. You conduct yourself in a particular way. I remember I hated wearing ties to work, but I had to wear ties, and a suit and all of that. I used to love wearing a suit, maybe if we were going to something formal, but not as everyday attire, It used to bug me. And I thought, this is kind of like the heaven and hell thing. In heaven when I look like, I'm with my band, and I'm in hell when I'm wearing this suit. But, but it was a weird thing. But the type of work we do, it may differ a little bit. Some of the things you're saying, in terms of helping people to perhaps fulfill a particular goal or something like that. Sometimes there's people that I deal with, and it's not so much. I suppose it could be looked to as a goal, but it's not something that's so tangible in terms of I want to go and do this kind of position, or I want to be a really good mum or really good dad. It may be I just want to be peaceful, or I want more purpose in my life. And, that's not very tangible, because that's very different for everyone else. It's not like you kind of go, oh, when I step over there, now I'm going to find my purpose, And so really where these people are at, they're carrying an identity of either stuckness, or they're confused, or they don't know what they want, So even though they don't look at it as an identity, they're kind of carrying the identity of someone that is maybe in kind of like a victim state, if you like, Maybe something happened to them, maybe nothing happened to them, but there's something going on in their head that gives them a picture in their head of what's happening, and how I look at myself. And it comes back to that, that little meme with the kitten and the lion. You might be the lion, but you actually seen yourself as the kitten, and you're kind of stuck now, and you just want to be like that, but you don't know what that is. It's kind of like an unaccessed kind of picture, and we've kind of pull peel the onion back and kind of reveal yourself to kind of go, that's what it is, but and I think sometimes that's why we kind of go, it's easier to kind of let's help you lose 20 kilos, or let's help you find a position that you like, or something like that, because it is tangible. You can kind of go, yeah, now I know what to do. But and they're great goals to have, and you should have them. Just some of the people that I deal with, that's not the end goal for them, and it's kind of like, how do we resolve this? And it really comes back to the thoughts they have about who they are. That even though they, like I said, they don't see it as identity, but it's actually the picture of who they think they are and how their world is that is creating their reality.
Yeah, talking about memes and tangibility. Just hearing you talk brought up a different definition of identity for me, which I don't think I had really had until I just heard you talk. And that thought is that identity is just internal. It's just for you and for no one else. I think you and I have spoken about this before, and the saying goes that everybody has their own version of you in their head. You like to think that your version of you is the same for everyone, but it's actually not. Your version of you that you think other people have is probably further from anything else that people think.
Yeah.
So all of this talk about identity is really just for yourself. Is really just to satisfy your own goals, wishes, dreams, ambitions, anything. And you were talking about the meme with the cat, and you mentioned a particular sentence before, and it made me think of a cartoon. I'm sure you've seen this. It's an old-fashioned 4-panel cartoon where there's a wishing well, and this lady walks up to this wishing well, and the lady, I don't know how old she is, but without being too mean, it's a drawing, okay, so it's a cartoon, so don't worry. But the lady isn't that attractive.
Yeah.
So she goes to the wishing well, flips a coin in, and says, "I want to be irresistible to men." And then, boom, she turns into a Porsche. And so, she wanted to assume the identity of somebody that was pretty in her head.
Yeah.
But she turned into a Porsche, which actually fulfilled her wish.
Yes.
And that to me thought, oh, so identity is 100% personal to you.
Yeah.
Because you could say to yourself that I am a great coach, or I am a great nurse, doctor, engineer, whatever I've said before. But that's only for you, because other people will have a different opinion. Some of them might match. They might say, yeah, he's a really good IT guy, or he's a really good coach, or whatever. But more often than not, it's not going to be an exact match. It might be, yeah, he's a great IT guy, but he's a great coach, but, and so realistically, assuming an identity or wanting to have an identity is really just for you. It's just for you to feel a sense of guidance, a sense of comfort, potentially some sense of accomplishment, especially if you're talking about an identity of, a big profession, a doctor, a surgeon, the typical kind of Asian things that kids grow up to be. I want my son to be a surgeon or a doctor or, a nurse or something along those lines. So as much as we'd like to think that the identity that we assume for ourselves is the same as to what other people will think of us as, it's entirely different. Like, my coming out video, I posted that everywhere that I could think of, Facebook and LinkedIn and all that sort of stuff. And so my family, not my immediate family, but my extended family, of which I've got quite a lot here, they don't know me as an IT guy. They know me as a cousin or a nephew, or not a niece, but a nephew or an uncle, so to speak. Yeah. So they're like, what are you coming out as? And it's like, oh yeah, that's right. He does work as an IT guy, but I've not known him as an IT guy. So here's me recording saying that most of you know me as an IT guy, and I'm coming out as a coach. Whereas many people go, oh yeah, I wouldn't put him in as an IT guy, which means that, at least for me, an identity is really just a label that you apply to yourself, and then you take parts of that you like, whether it's a health thing that you mentioned, whether it's a status thing, whether it's a wealth thing, you can kind of mold that identity to do that. And once there's an identity there of sorts, then you can kind of take those actions, which will lead to that outcome of you being rich or being famous or being great at sports. So that sort of just came to me when you were talking about, the meme again, and it made me think of, being irresistible, because I think you were talking about losing weight, and I'm like, yeah. And then I thought of that cartoon where the lady turned to a Porsche, and I was like, yeah, you're right. Damn right, irresistible.
I love it. It's great. I wonder how many people, after seeing your video, went, he's an IT guy?
There'd be, look, there were a couple. Because, I have, look, I don't have, I wouldn't say, I have friends. I wouldn't say I have a lot of friends, but I know a lot of people. And that's because of businesses that I've worked in many different companies, not many different companies. I've worked in big companies. I've looked after small businesses, and people from those small businesses work in other businesses. And so I know all of them as well. And I have family, here and overseas. And, there's a chance that cousins that I have overseas who I've never met, they don't know me from a bar of soap, and they'll just automatically think, oh my God, he's gay. Like, I didn't even know. I didn't know what he was to begin with, but now I know he's coming out. So
too funny. Yeah, the other day I had an old boss ring me and asking if I wanted to go back and work with them. I think I mentioned to you last time. And the interesting thing was when I told him what I was doing instead, it was kind of like crickets, because it's kind of like he couldn't make the two kind of things match. You work 9 to 5 doing things on computers, and you're doing this, and yeah, definitely. I think you're right. Identity is definitely for you, and I think where it helps, like when when life's good, it doesn't matter. There is no actual problem, and I think it's only when we hit these roadblocks and you don't know what you want and you don't know what's going on. This is a tool that you can actually get to where, I think you mentioned it about, what we do in coaching, where you see yourself as Superman or Superwoman and, not as the victim person, and it's inside of each of us, we have all of that. We have all these different kind of identities, if you like, and we get to choose whatever the heck you want, really. And but for some reason, we get on this kind of treadmill where we're stuck doing the same, crappy stuff for a long time. And the longer we do it for a long time, it becomes our life, and it's kind of like, this is all it is. And once you're stuck on that treadmill, it's very hard to get off. And I think that's where, people like yourself and me and other people in this industry use the skills we have to help them get off that treadmill and start, going down a different path.
No, definitely, and I think as well the identity piece comes into play where people are lost and they're stuck and they want to change and they have a core group of wants and of potentially some things that allows them to make them feel good, but they don't know how to translate that into a job or a career. Yeah. It's like, I like doing this, I like doing that, and I also like doing this. And so you need to somehow wrap it up so there's a bit of guidance, a bit of direction there. And that's when it's like, okay, well, that sounds like you could be a blah. And then once you say what that blah is, that's the identity that you're like, you know what? I think you're right.
Yeah.
I was talking with a client yesterday, and he had created this website for himself, and it was almost like an online CV. It didn't really portray an identity. It was just more accolades, and it was a very nice site, and the person's very well credentialed, lovely guy. But if you whittled it all down to what essentially he wants to do, it was almost like it was just a business coach. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Business coaches are excellent, and he would make an excellent business coach. But that's the identity that I see him as now. Whereas for him, it's a bit different, and that's having an identity helps you with either the skills that you need, the resources that's available, but at the same time gives you that direction. Because, when people get to our age, they might have had 1 or 2 or maybe 3 different career changes, and they're now looking at, whatever it is that I start now, I'd like to see that till I stop working, or I'll do that until, I can no longer do it.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of people really do look inner and go, okay, so I have these skills, I have this much money, I have this much time. Like, what is it? What can I do? Some people, they could be a results coach, some could be a business coach, some could be a high performance teams coach. There's all these different things that people will want to explore at a point in their life, which is similar to us in terms of age, but there's no one job that that corrects it. There's no like, oh, okay, that's it. It's more like, well, if we take bits of that and bits of that, like, do we ask ChatGPT? Do we ask other people that that have this sort of knowledge?
Yeah.
And once we do have that identity, then we can ask ourselves, even as coaches, we can ask the client, okay, so if you want to be a blah, what is it going to take for you to be blah? Do you have to take that course? Do you have to study? Do you have to do, do you have to volunteer somewhere? Do you have to change your way of thinking? Do you have to move? There are these sorts of questions that once that identity has been accepted, so to speak, then the rest of the pieces can kind of fall into place and they can eventually get their way there. And that means that they're now where they were once stuck because they have some idea, having that identity will cause them to be unstuck in a way, or at least have some sort of direction, which as coaches, it's kind of, that's what we want to do. Basically, we want to get people to the next step.
Absolutely.
And without sort of telling them what it is that they want, just more so asking them, so what do you enjoy? What are you good at? What skills do you need to develop? And based off what their answers are, they'll just give them to you.
Yeah.
Let them all find out for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a depth to this as well, like if people know what they want, we can give them clear steps, and there's millions of things online, of course, that can help them as well, work that out for themselves. And and there's no shortage of kind of maps to kind of pave the way if you wanted to get there as well, you know what I mean? So you kind of have to ask yourself, so if people have the information, if they know what they want, then what's stopping them, And identity's one thing, but there's a depth to that as well, From there, we've got things like, are you a person that moves away or moves towards things, pain versus pleasure, and all of these things kind of tie into that identity that you see as well, And so working with a person, I guess that's where we have to find out, where are they at, Is it just a case of kind of working out what they want, and they might be on their way, But is it something deeper than that, If they know what they want, they've got all the steps to get there, and what's stopping them, We always say it's fear, but fear of what, And are we moving towards the pleasure or running away from the fear of something instead, And sometimes when we do that, we end up in a place we don't want anyway. So, there's really a depth to it, I guess. And identity is just one of the kind of benchmarks we have to kind of play with. And as long as you can use it for a place where you can find freedom in what you want to do. And the thing is, I think for people that have been stuck for a long time, that's kind of where they're at, though, without them knowing it. They're in a place where they probably see themselves as someone that's stuck. There was there was someone that I knew some time ago, and she had some difficulty with a relationship with her mum. And what had happened when she was quite young, her mum had to give her up for adoption. And she was in her late 30s, 40s at the time. And they had a kind of relationship where it was kind of on again, off again, that sort of thing. And it was difficult to kind of get to a place where she had the want and desire to have a good relationship with her mum, which her mum did as well, There was no animosity there, and there was an understanding why it all happened. And so logically it all made sense, but she couldn't bring herself to kind of forgive and get this relationship back on track. But a lot of what she was holding and the things that kind of happened in her past led to kind of a mess for her in terms of the experience she was having for the last, 20, 30 years of her life. And until all of that was resolved, from how she saw her mum and how she saw herself, until those things got resolved, the relationship itself couldn't come together. You know what I mean? And that was an identity shift that had to happen, not just the way she saw herself, but the way she saw the other person as well. And sometimes that's where you've got to go, because even though you want the good relationship, you know why things went the way they did, and you know all the reasons why you want to come together. You want to have a harmonious relationship together. Unfortunately, there's something deeper that's stopping that from happening, and it's not just the mechanics of it and the logic, but there's a lot of raw feelings, and what's that tied to? How do we see that? Yeah. So until that's resolved in that person's mind, they can't make any headway forward.
Yeah. I'm surprised that we've spoken for almost 50 minutes and we actually haven't said fake it till you make it. I think that's what people default to when you talk about identity, especially from a lot of the rah-rah crowd, which is all good. Yeah. It's probably one of the most well-known ways to try and assume an identity is to basically believe that you are that. And that comes with even what we are doing. There's a certain level of imposter syndrome when you start to talk about this stuff, when you're starting a new career that, you think you've got chops in, but you don't have any runs on the board. You hit record and go like, should anybody be listening to me about what I'm talking about? But you have to just keep going. You just have to be like, okay, well, people have said I'm okay. I hope what I'm talking about makes sense and is cohesive, and it's from my heart and it's authentic. And occasionally I'll still hit record and go, I have no idea what I'm talking about, but somehow it makes sense.
Yeah.
So it is identity and faking it till you make it works for some people. I'm not saying that it's the one way to do it for everyone, but it is closely tied to identity. It's one of those things that, if you want to be A, B, C, or D, at some point you're going to have to act like that, even though you're not anywhere near that. You're going to have to accept that you're going to have to do things that you might not. I'm not saying you might not like, but are foreign to you, that you'll find uncomfortable, that you'll have to be like, I'm going to have to hit record, and, some people that I went to high school with that I didn't gel with are going to find me funny, and I don't care if it's going to make me feel a bit weird, but I'm going to do it anyway. I don't care what they think. And what you find as well is that you're your own worst enemy when it comes to this sort of stuff. You think that recording something and proclaiming to the world that you're this new identity, that you're going to get shunned, you're going to get teased, and sure, it might happen, but more often than not, it's not. More people are like, "Good on you. That's a good move." I wish I could do something like that. It's just, that whole imposter syndrome kicking in. It's the, it's the feeling that as much as you want this new identity, it might not get there. But I'm surprised it took us that long to talk about it, because you mentioned something and I'm like, fake it till you make it. And that's, and again, that comes down to guidance. That's the, it's almost a tangible way to address a particular goal that might not be as tangible as you mentioned before. If it's a weight loss thing, you could turn that around to having the identity of somebody that's fit, like a CrossFitter or a marathon runner or something along those lines. That could make it a bit easier for people to get unstuck. It goes both ways. If their goal is to lose that weight, and people are like, okay, well, all right, I know what to do. I need to eat this and I need to exercise and blah, blah, blah. But if you would sit down with them and say, just think that you're like an athlete, like you're a professional athlete, and think how they do. What would they do? They might get up in the morning and do some exercise. They might turn away, the slices of cake at a party, because they know that they have to be on point. They have to weigh a particular way. They need to know that their muscles are getting the right sort of food into them. And assuming that identity might actually help them get that goal. And that's just not from a fitness point of view. You could relate that to any goal that you put that isn't related to an identity. Putting an identity around it might make the person be able to understand it better, and therefore fill in the blanks that they've got, and said, okay, so now if I'm a professional actor, what do I need to do? I need to give the best effort that I can. I need to hit record, and what they say, make love to the camera, sort of thing. That sort of stuff. They need to assume that identity. So using it in that way is is just as powerful, I think, as well.
100%. I think, fake it till you make it is a fantastic place to start, and it's essential, really. But there's really three things you have to do when you do that too. You've got to think like that person. You have to feel like that person, and you've got to do like that person. You mentioned those things. What happens is the fake it till you make it. We have to see that person. Who is that person? Whether it's a different version of yourself, or what we do in coaching too is modeling. We find someone that has the thing that we want, and we model what they've done already, and cut them out if you have to stick your face on their body.
I was about to say that.
Yeah. That's certainly one thing you can do. So you need the visual representation of someone that you want to aspire to be. And so you've got to have that visual. You've got to think, what are they doing? What are they thinking? What's the thoughts they're thinking that are getting them into this kind of position? Whatever it is, like you said, could be in weight loss, could be in wealth, could be better relationships, whatever it is. So what are they thinking? How are they feeling? What's the depth of how they feel when they're this person doing the thing that they're doing? And what are they doing? What are the actions that they're doing? How do they conduct themselves? How do they hold themselves? Do they wear different clothes even? You don't have to go and buy, if you want to be wealthy, you don't have to go and buy an Armani suit, but you have to take some pride in the way you look, that when you do that, you feel better. When you put nicer clothes on, you all of a sudden walk a bit higher, walk a bit taller, all of those sort of things. So I also remember, and I wish I could remember who it was that said this, because I thought it was a brilliant analogy, and when actors act, there are actors that go and they play the part, and then once the director says cut, they're back to who their old self is, But then there's these exceptional actors that they're the ones that win the awards and things like that. That they embody the actual role, where months or maybe a year even prior to taking on this role, they've become that person. I remember in the Doors movie, Val Kilmer became Jim Morrison. And apparently he could not let that role go for a long time after that movie was wrapped up, and he became Jim Morrison in every sense of the word. And there's countless others that have done it as well, but they become that character, and I'm not saying become somebody else, but become the best version of yourself. And where do you see those aspects in other people, that you kind of go, oh yeah, I would love to do that. I'd like to be that, all of that. Bring that into who you are, the superhuman version of who that person is, and embody it, Fake it till you make it, but embody the actual person.
Well, Shane, I think that is an excellent point to wrap up on. We've almost been talking for an hour, which always seems to fly by. Whenever we think about a topic that we're not going to have anything to talk about at length, we always seem to talk for an hour. So I think that'll be it for today. My dog is actually calling me.
Fantastic.
And Shane, I will chat to you tomorrow for another episode.
Absolutely. Look forward to it.
See you, mate.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.